All right, everyone. Steve Metrics here, No Debate Sports with your boy.
DJ Triggs.
And boom, together we are No Debate Sports here on a Tuesday, taking off for Memorial Day yesterday. And we got some Western Conference Finals action. And like that, 4 games in, Eastern Conference done. How about that, DJ Triggs?
I mean, you said Western Conference action. I don't even know if it's action or if it's just like a one-sided beating,
It,
just
it,
like
it,
the Eastern Conference.
it is, but I don't know how you feel, but I love the Western Conference games more than the Eastern Conference games. I think the Eastern Conference games, they definitely feel like a step below multiple teams that have already been eliminated in the West and even previous rounds in my eyes.
So I've been thinking about this all day leading up to the show.
Okay.
This might be the worst NBA playoffs of all time.
I agree. It is. It
Uh,
is just so one-sided, so weird, injury lopsided. It's very bizarre, and it's bringing weird paths to get to the championship.
See, okay, the injuries on the East side, yes, I
Yeah,
get that. Like Boston's probably had the easiest, step to get it to the finals of any team ever.
right.
Um, and I honestly don't even think Boston's as good as, all of the big wigs on, the letter network and stuff like that
Yeah.
have pushed them to be.
I'm wearing
Um,
green today, and I think they are clearly the worst team of the 4, even
yeah.
though them winning significantly helps me getting paid in my sports bet that I have placed on the NBA finals.
Nice.
Yeah.
But the Western Conference, like, I also like the way Minnesota has just been getting destroyed. I know like the games have looked close, but like Carl Anthony Towns did exactly what he always does in the playoffs. He kind of faded.
Clams up.
Uh, Rudy Gobert, which
He's
I
playing
actually
pretty
want
well,
to
man. I'm
wait
not
a
gonna
minute.
go against that guy. Like I really
Oh,
actually
see,
enjoy watching him.
I'm actually so happy to hear you say that. He
Yeah.
has probably proven that he is the worst DPOY of all time.
Yeah, and like I'm not even like definitely the defense to me is lagging, but even seeing like kind of what he does on offense is very enjoyable to watch.
Really?
Yeah, there's like I like the lobs, I like the way that they can be creative on offense. To me, it gives almost like a pseudo Bobby Portis vibe in my
Oh no.
eyes.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
he's
Don't
he's
you
not in the same style,
Yeah,
but
don't
it's like
disrespect Bobby Portis.
I'm just saying they gotta bring in more of that kind of interior play. And it just feels like it's lagging. Like something in this model of their offense is not working. Maybe it's the jump shots and the mid-range and beyond the arc. There's something going on with the Timberwolves where it's like, man, there are definitely parts of this offense that's not clicking on all 8 cylinders. But when Gobert or Anthony Edwards get in the low post, they make it happen.
So I am completely in disagreement with you on that one. Rudy Gobert is probably the worst center. He in a starting role, I think he's probably the worst center in the league.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I've heard
he
of the liability on offense too, but it's like
he is
still like they're coaching. They got to figure this out. You're getting to this point, figure out that offense. It's a good
it,
team. I just
so
don't get
that
how they're falling flat so hard.
so that's exactly what like falls into the category of this being the worst NBA playoffs of all time.
Right.
We're saying they're a good team and they're not. Rudy Gobert is I have no idea why anyone votes him as the DPOY every year. And
Yeah.
every year in the playoffs, he is a complete liability on defense. Not even on offense. On defense, he is if a guard puts him one on one,
Yeah.
and
You're
I know a lot of centers that's a mismatch. I get it. but he is almost like unplayable when a
Yeah.
guard comes out and just like I mean, look at Luca putting him on skates and then going, "You can't guard me." Like he's literally
Yeah.
saying that to the defensive player of the year. You can't guard me. And
But
then
how at this point have they gotten so far and they've looked so dominant against Denver, which is where this weird mismatch
so
occurs. Yet at the same time, with what we're saying, neither Gobert nor Carl Anthony Towns in some odd way shouldn't even be starters.
so so the weird part is so the first round, uh I had these stats up, but apparently my what laptop doesn't want to tell me stuff. But
Oh,
the first round, Carl Anthony Towns, I wanted to say, shot 50% from the field and nearly 50% from three. And then the
okay.
second round, he was like 50% from the field and like 40% from three. And
Okay.
then in this round, or at least the last 5 games, he has shot 4 for 32 from the 3-point line. And think
It's
about it.
like zero.
They've literally lost by a total of like 10 points in 3 games. I don't have it up right
Yeah.
now, but
But that
it
comes out to equating to about missing three free throw, or I mean, sorry, three-point shots,
it,
like his
in
stats.
the last game he went 0 for 8 from three. And
Oh,
so like and that's why again I
that's at
said
least
like
8 points. That's eight
yeah,
points that you're gone. You can't
yeah.
recover from.
Uh and so like that's why I say maybe this is the worst playoffs of all time because Minnesota had a chance to represent the Western Conference
Yeah, they did.
and now they're rescinding back to what they are. Minnesota has
They
never
are
been a playoff team. They've been bad for so long, and they've had the same team for a handful of years.
right.
And everyone wanted to hop on and say Anthony Edwards was like the next Michael Jordan, and it's like, yeah, he's really good.
Oh, I think he's getting
He's
there.
he's really good,
Yeah.
but he doesn't take over games like
Not
at
yet.
all. He
Yeah.
he just he happens to just be in. Yeah, I agree. Not yet, but like
Yeah. I mean, he's
they're in the
basically
Western.
playing with like what? Isn't he? I mean, we're basically seeing a guy almost playing like straight out of high school in a way. Like he had no March Madness.
Yeah,
He had the season, but he had no March Madness. So in a way, he's playing. In some ways, his career in the NBA has been equivalent to if you had played 3 years in college, full 3 years in college.
right.
So like what Anthony Edwards to me is doing is incredibly impressive, and the fact that too, like he wants to go against Kyrie Irving and defend
And
him,
he's
and it's
getting
hard.
he's getting absolutely tortured.
Yeah,
Tortured. Everyone wanted to talk about how he was such a great defender one on one.
not
He's
now.
he's got a really big talk and he is getting absolutely tortured on defense. And
Yeah,
he's non-existent on offense. Anthony Edwards
yeah.
is non-existent. Like
Yeah, you're right. Like this is to me, this is more of like a next level shock. Like there is
yeah,
something special about Kyrie Irving and the way he plays. I mean, I'm hearing from multiple athletes, analysts that say basically Kyrie, when it comes to handles, he's basically like the best ball handler, like at
of
least
all
in this
time.
generation, possibly
Yeah.
all time. It's either like him or AI.
And Isaiah Thomas. There's
Oh,
probably
okay.
those three.
I've
Because
never seen Isaiah play, so
Isaiah Thomas in the 80s was like magical.
wow.
And I mean that's basically the Pistons ran through him. I mean, you're
Okay,
talking about one of the greatest point guards of all time.
sure.
Yeah, Magic has all the rings and all the flashiness, but Isaiah was so good. And yeah, AI like he was doing street ball moves on the court that nobody was doing.
Yeah, ever.
Um, but yeah, Kyrie is like
That's different.
impossible to guard.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then even when Anthony Edwards is like lined up with Luca, Luca's making him look silly too.
Ooh.
And and I get it. They're two of the best point guards of this time, but like it's almost like um Minnesota's being one of the best defensive teams in the league they lean on Rudy Gobert as the help side defense,
Right.
and he's like, I don't even know how to say it, but he's not good. He's not
Did
even good at defense. He just
did
happens to be long and 7 foot,
yeah.
and he gets some blocks sometimes. And he didn't even lead the league in blocks. So like, I'm so confused on how this guy got DPOI.
Right, right. I don't see that. Like I see him getting blocks. That to me that doesn't reflect just being defensive player of the year. In
Yeah,
my eyes, obviously wearing green and you and I both being from Milwaukee, it's clear as day that not only is he defensive player of the year, but he's also one of the best players out there. To me, defensive player of the year is Drew Holiday. It's either that or
one
it's
of
Victor
them.
Wembanyama.
Or I would have said Victor Wembanyama this year. But then you
Yeah.
know what? This kind of leans into my thought that I had a couple weeks ago. How is Giannis not on a defense all defensive team?
Oh, he's
Like,
got it too.
and that made no sense to me at all. Where I'm like, you put Rudy Gobert, who's a liability,
Yeah.
literally when the playoffs, as soon as the playoffs start and they play they play playoff
It's
basketball
different.
on offense. He
Yeah.
is absolutely trash. And like,
Did they only pick it because of the blocks?
I have no idea because he didn't lead the league in blocks. Victor
Oh, that's
Wembanyama
weird.
was like 3.6 a game. He was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Brooke Lopez led the league in shot adjustment
Okay.
percentage. And
Sure.
it's like Brooke
That
Lopez
means something.
he didn't even get on the all defensive team.
Yeah, that doesn't make
Neither
sense
did Giannis.
either.
And I'm just like, what are they looking at?
Yeah, there what stats or metrics? Because there's good stats, there's good metrics. I hear JJ Redick talk about it all the time. They're out there.
Yeah.
It's 2024. They exist.
And when you literally like I've said a couple of times, when you can't play a guy in the playoffs, where exactly does DPOY come from? And like
Right.
Jaden McDaniels is doing his job, but he's non-existent on offense. Carl Anthony Towns just kind of shrinks, and
Yeah, I mean,
like,
he's getting benched. I mean, flat out Nas Reed is better than him, and
yeah,
like Nas Reed is I mean, people say he's the second best player on the Wolves now.
he
Like
is. He really is.
he's a pretty impressive player. Like
That's why he won
really
six man
awesome.
of the year.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
the best bench player in the NBA, and now he's ascending from that.
and so then you look at Mike Conley and like
Conley's
he does
great.
he doesn't give you any offense though. He's a really good leader. He's been around the block a few times, but
Yeah,
like ball handling, Anthony Edwards handles the ball way more than he does, or at least
sure.
the same amount.
Yeah, he's a
And
guy off the bench for sure that gives you hard minutes.
but he's a starting point guard on this team. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not right.
and then think about Dallas. So I'm not gonna leave Dallas off this why this is a bad playoffs, but so yeah, you have Kyrie and Luca, and that's it.
Yeah, but they
Like
got size. Unfortunately, one of them went down 2 days ago, but they
yeah.
definitely have size.
Now think about what you just said. They have size, but they're playing against a team with 2 7-footers in their lineup,
Yeah, and they're crushing them.
and and one of them is the DPOY.
Yeah,
They're murdering that team.
yeah,
Like
and it
and
just
so
shows that like they know how to get Rudy Gobert quicksand feet. They do it
yeah,
so easily, and I've heard it has to do with the pick and rolls. It's
yep.
smart. Like I think the handles that Kyrie has can make Gobert lose his balance incredibly easily. I
Every
think
every
there's
every
some cool
point guard in
stuff.
the league does that to him. All of
Yeah.
to Rudy Gobert.
Yep.
But so now we're talking about Dallas, right? Their center is a rookie. I love Derek Lively at the beginning of the season. And then they traded and got a guy off the Wizards. I'll repeat that. They got a guy off the Wizards,
He's
Daniel
good.
Gafford.
He's good. I like him.
Oh, he's solid. Yeah. I mean, I had him on
Yeah.
a lot of fantasy teams, right?
Yeah.
And and then the other guy that's like making them look bad, PJ Washington, they traded for a guy on the Hornets. Again, the one of the worst teams in the East.
Yeah.
They traded for another player that was in purgatory. No one knew who PJ Washington was.
No.
And then And then, oh, guess what? We just plucked a former like dunk contest guy and Derrick Jones Jr. We just plucked him out of the sky because
Yeah.
he was also in NBA like garbage land.
Yes.
And those are the guys beating up the DPOY and Carl Anthony Towns, who's a quote unquote star player. Like,
The weirdest thing about this, and I was hearing, I think it's Doc Rivers' son, Austin.
yep,
He's an excellent commentator, by the way. Awesome broadcaster, awesome commentator. I heard him on ESPN today, and he was saying flat out, he just doesn't understand how this is such a mismatch. Like, how are these things
yeah.
working in this way? Yet Denver just got torched by Minnesota. How in
Yep.
the world did Denver mismatch against Minnesota, and now Minnesota is completely mismatched against Dallas? I think
So
it has to do something with how these analytical matches are occurring from these Mavericks. I don't know, like it's really bizarre.
so then I heard, Charles Barkley said it at the beginning of this series, and he said it again the other night,
Don't
where
start Gobert.
he thinks that, well, he said that, but he also thinks that Minnesota is the wrong matchup for Dallas. And in my eyes, I'm like, wait, so Minnesota has the better bigs, quote unquote, better bigs.
Bigger size for sure.
They have uh, the better defenders. They have guards that are okay enough. That I mean, Dallas is clearly better in the guard, but they're okay.
Right.
And it's a complete mismatch. Like I just and then I look at Denver, right? Denver won last year. Denver basically brought back the exact same team minus
They did.
what Bruce Brown, right?
And one other guy, the guy who used to be on the Brooklyn Nets, older guy, but really solid. Like hit some
Oh, Jeff
clutch.
Green.
Jeff Green, yes,
Yeah,
Jeff
I
Green was
mean,
solid.
I yeah, he's like 90 years old.
I
Even when
know,
he was on the team, he was
but they
okay, I
needed him.
guess.
I
But
mean, like he
they
definitely had a difference.
they have analytically, I'm using these quotes again,
Yep,
the best starting five, and they got embarrassed. Like,
they looked so. I to me when I'm watching the West, the thing that I boil it down to is athleticism. But something with Oklahoma City didn't fit that bill. And I wonder if it's like a weird, like youthful, immature, like not immature, but just less experience, like what we see out of the Indiana Pacers. I wonder if that factors in. But I feel like if you have experience plus athleticism, to me, that is really, really tough to beat. And I
see,
think that's what we're seeing out of the Dallas Mavericks right now. And oddly, in the East, even though it's been a complete mismatch, the Celtics carry themselves in that manner as well.
maybe that's something to lean into. But I mean, I'm just gonna hold it to just this is just the worst playoffs I've ever seen.
It's
Like
so weird because
even
like we're not getting true matchups that I think we should be getting.
and even with Oklahoma City, right? Like, I love Shea. Like
Yeah,
I've tooted the Shea bandwagon for like ever. Um, Oklahoma City looked like the playing team
they kind of
almost.
looked average at
Yeah, and they
times.
got embarrassed.
And
And I'm
it
like,
like I think you need complementary like big time stars. You need complementary big time stars, athleticism and good size. And there's times where I was like, whoa, this almost feels like the Timberwolves with what Anthony Edwards is going in, where he's in a way alone, and Shea Gilgeous is almost alone as well. Whereas Dallas has both Kyrie and Luca plus size to complement them. And I think that brings that beautiful chemistry to get those wins. And Boston kind of has that, but they don't have the size.
see, but
It's
and
like they have three of them.
I was just about to say that. So then you go like so then you work if you go off like the stars and size, I mean every team has like one or two stars. That's just kind of how they're built. So then let's go to Phoenix. They have like 15 stars and they were embarrassed.
They
They
don't know
were
what the heck they're
horrible.
doing.
They were
They look so bad.
they were horrible. And
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, well let's go to another team that has two stars and size. The LA Lakers. they were horrible. Absolutely
Yes.
garbage.
No athleticism I noticed on that team. Like there was just no athleticism. They couldn't keep up with anyone.
Nope. But like people will tell you, AD and Rio Hachimura and
I
LeBron
like
and
Hachimura,
like
man. I think there's something there with that guy for sure.
maybe.
But something with like how the ball just kind of like it dies in either LeBron or Anthony Davis. It just doesn't feel like they have that flow. Like I know there's something weird going on with D'Angelo Russell, but like they need that guy. Like you really need that guy. So there's something with the chemistry, but I think it comes into this weird politics of the Lakers as well. Like it's like the greatest job to have as a coach with doing all of these basketball things, except for being the head coach of the Lakers, and you get all this added drama, and then it boils back to the team. And the Lakers have a very weird dynamic that obviously fell right under them this season.
Maybe. Yeah. I guess so. I mean,
It's not like
like
the COVID year where that team was like incredibly well built and they were rolling.
yeah, I guess so. I don't even count the COVID year, but
That,
they
that was
won
a
the
that was
championship.
such a good team, man.
Um,
It was literally identical to what Milwaukee did the season after. Milwaukee
I
was
mean,
built in a very similar manner, and then they just ran through the league, and they were a better team, and they had those same style of size and athleticism that the Lakers carried the year before.
I guess so. I like I said, I don't count the COVID year. I mean, if we remember correctly, Milwaukee was like steamrolling the NBA, and then
Yeah,
COVID happened, and yeah. But
it stopped.
um,
I get it. Yeah,
but I don't want to use my bias towards them. But then so that's the entire West, and I haven't named one good team in the West. Then you go to the East, and literally every team that has played has been injured. I mean,
yeah.
Miami was injured, New York got injured, Philly got injured, Milwaukee got injured. Like none of like Boston basically has walked through, and yeah, they got to play the game still. Oh, in Indiana, Tyrese Halliburton missed, you know, some
Hamstring.
games. Like
Yeah, that does it.
it's like yeah, Boston's a really quote unquote good team, but have they even been tested? No. And every
No,
year that they get tested, they usually lose. And I mean, yeah, they make it to the finals, 2 out of the last 3 years. But and when they made it, we weren't like, oh yeah, Boston's gonna win. We were like, oh, Boston made it. Cool. And
right.
this year, it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, Boston made it. Because someone asked me today, and this is how my brain started rolling this way and started thinking about each team. They asked me, oh, who you got winning the finals? And I said, I honestly don't care. And and they looked at me and they're like, wait, but you're a basketball fan. I'm like, yeah. It doesn't feel like a finals. This like if Boston plays Dallas, so like
Yeah,
I don't
I think Dallas is gonna probably well. Here's the thing. I think this series actually might be close for the fact that Boston is going to give them a look totally different from Minnesota.
right.
Minnesota is trying to basically Trojan horse size against the Dallas Mavericks. Boston, knowingly, without Porzingis, does not have size.
No.
So they're going to win. Their style of win is with athleticism.
But
And they have four guys that are pure athletes with the ball.
if you put uh Porzingis or Al Horford on the court, they will get tortured like Rudy Gobert. Like
Right.
they're not fast. They're not super great defenders, even though they get touted as great defenders. Like those two guards will put them on an island and basically embarrass them, like they
That
have Rudy Gobert.
they have. However, I think Boston is going to be smarter about it. And I think they're going to try to rotate those guys away from the guards.
And
Like,
if
I mean, they're big. Put them low post. Like, have them work that low post, not against the guards. I think a style like that, and not only that, we know when it comes to upper management, no one's better than Boston in the league. So I think they're going to be smarter about this
I
than
don't
Minnesota is.
I don't trust Joe Mazzulla though. So like he was basically gifted uh, a studded roster,
He
and
was. Well, they flipped it though, because the roster that went to the finals against Golden State was clearly flawed and not capable of winning a championship.
I mean, but it's still Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford. Yeah, they changed Drew Holiday,
That's
but
big.
Drew Holiday can't guard both of them by himself.
Nope,
And
he can only
Derek
guard one.
and they talk about Derek White being this great defender, but like,
He stepped up. I wouldn't say he's
yeah,
great, but he stepped up.
he's okay. But
Yeah.
again, is he going to be able to guard one of those guys? I trust Drew Holiday. Yeah, great.
The
But
thing is, I think someone can absolutely, you can put a secondary defender on Luka. Like, he does that weird drain wave three, which is like lethal. But there are times where when it comes into tempo and him driving to the rim where Luka does get beat. Like, he has that stylistic ability when he's outside, but something with him getting beat up through the playoffs, he doesn't have that athleticism inside. And there are times where like he definitely waits for the play to develop before he
yep,
gets involved, which to me shows that he is not the true point guard of this team. He is more
no,
so the shooting guard, but he
yeah,
is definitely not running the point. He's a shooting guard, and that's who he is, and he knows it, and that works. That's fantastic. That's how they operate the offense. Teams need to understand that like certain guys are shooting guards and others are point guards. You have to run that. Somehow Boston knows how to do it with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Dallas is doing the same with Luka and Kyrie. Like that's how it works.
So now here's where I come back at Boston though. Jason Tatum, he just scored. He just did the for the second time in the history of Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. He had 30, 10, and 5. You would never know that because Jaylen Brown won Eastern Conference Player of the Year, named after Larry Bird, who was the other guy that did it. And
Yeah.
it's like it's you can it's almost like the elephant in the room that like these two guys don't play well together. They kind of like step back. One has the ball, and it's like, okay, I'll watch him do his thing, and now it's my turn. And
Right.
that's been their
That's
Achilles
not
heel for a long time.
Yeah, that's not what the way Dallas runs that offense. And to
No,
me, I'm with you on this. I think Dallas is clearly the better team, and I think Dallas will win it all
see,
because they understand their roles better.
and that's the crazy part. I don't know who will win, and I honestly don't care because I'm just like both teams has their flaws. Where like one year they're the talk of the town, and then the next year they're just kind of like,
I
oh,
don't
I
see
don't
the
even
flaws in
expect them.
Dallas that you see, though. I think Dallas has upgraded massively over the last few seasons, and the way they've grown and the way they've developed under Jason Kidd. I mean, yeah, granted, Lively got hurt, but other than that, I really love the way Dallas has built this team and the way they are running through the West. I mean, I've heard people say, uh, including you, even post All Star break, like keep your eye on the Mavericks.
Oh
They're
yeah,
doing that. They're showing
I
that
love
they're winning the West, which is
I love
very difficult.
I see, but that's where I disagree. I don't even know if the West is difficult. I think they just said that to us so much that we believed it. Where like even their records were all the same, and it was like,
Right.
oh, they're really top heavy, and the bottom is really really bad. And it's like, yeah, I mean I remember when they made the trades for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. I was like, oh man, those are actually two good pieces, and they're
Right.
complementary. And but
But to
like,
get Denver out of the playoffs, I don't think that's easy. Like Denver's a very well built team. I do feel they definitely lagged on athleticism, especially against the Timberwolves. But I really thought Denver was going to run their way to the finals, and I thought if they would have run into either an Oklahoma City or a Dallas Mavericks, I would have been really intrigued to see how that matchup would have developed. But I'm still really shocked that Minnesota like won 3 games in Denver against the Nuggets. That to me is still still an incredible feat alongside the feat of the Indiana Pacers going to New York and winning a Game 7 in New York. There are parts of these playoffs that are really impressive. And I think the thing about it too that makes it more impressive is looking at what Boston has done. At least two of those games that they have won, Game 1 and Game 3, they both have won with facing down a 97% chance of losing and like a 93% chance of losing in Game 3. They won both games. So Indiana is even better than what they should be, but their lack of immaturity, inexperience, and then their lack of just the way they lost Game 1. I had a feeling the way you lose Game 1, I just felt like that was just going to steamroll and just avalanche its way into losing the series because you basically had 3 opportunities to win that game and you lost it. Every single one of those opportunities could have done it, and you lost each and every one of them.
See, and maybe that's just me. Like, again, I don't even think Denver's that good. Like, I know
I think Denver is pretty good.
Jokic is good. Yeah, Jokic does his thing, but like Aaron Gordon is him and Michael Porter Jr. are
They
basically
play
the
hard.
same player,
They
and
are.
they're blah.
They are. I definitely see like that. That's a team that could totally benefit from, and that was my theory that like they would get a guy like Luka Doncic, and that would be a really interesting look. I think they need like a crazy bona fide scorer that really brings athleticism like Anthony Edwards brings. I think that's what Denver is just like salivating for.
Yeah, like to me, Denver, it's a bunch of dudes and Jokic. Like Jamal Murray shows up in the playoffs, yeah, that's great. But like
They're winning with elevation.
they're just a bunch of dudes and Jokic. And Jokic
Yeah.
is perfect for that type of play where he's not moving very fast. He doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
He doesn't play defense. He's just there. And
Right.
then on offense, he can do a bunch of stuff.
I feel next year for sure they will, in my eyes, whether it's the regular season or the playoffs, I feel like a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder will absolutely torch them because they're going to win with athleticism. They're just way more athletic. We'll see how that matches up against like a Dallas in the future, but like there are just things with the younger teams, and what's to say like a San Antonio doesn't get a little bit better too. But I just think that like Denver, to me, Denver, the Lakers, and the Milwaukee Bucks are all in the same boat where they like need some drastic change of pace with a player that is just purely athletic and can just run it like a Shea or an Anthony Edwards. They both need a guy like that, or in my eyes, none of those 3 teams do anything next season. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are the 4th best team in the East right now. I think the Lakers are probably going to just scrap it and start from scratch in a way, with or without LeBron. And then I feel that the Denver Nuggets, like I feel like they're going to run it back, and the same thing is going to happen.
Wait, the Bucks are the 5th
The
best team or 4th?
4th. Yep.
Behind who?
I have them behind Boston, Indiana, and the Knicks.
Oh no, not. Okay, I was with you for a second. I think if the Bucks would have played Boston in the playoffs, they would have beat them. Like I would have put all my money
I
on
was
them.
kind of feeling that too. Yeah,
Uh,
I was feeling that.
So I can't put them behind Boston. Indiana's not good.
Ooh, I disagree
They're
there. I think they're really special.
in what way? They
The
barely made the
speed.
playoffs.
They did. They barely made the playoffs, but when they got in, man, they were fast. The Knicks, I know that was a depleted Knicks, but still, like the Celtics are only depleted on losing one player. You're more than likely going to lose a player in the playoffs. So I felt that like Indiana, if they would have won Game 1 and Game 3, I think they could. I think they could have won that series.
Indiana nearly lost to the Bucks, and the Bucks didn't have Giannis.
That's
They
true.
got
That changes things.
4-2, and then the last game, yeah, the Bucks just didn't have it anymore, and they got beat. And remember, they didn't have Dame for half the series,
You're right.
and Chris Middleton came back from an injury, and they still had to go 6 games.
So
They
in a way,
went
the Bucks are
7.
like the Knicks, where
They
basically
went
the Bucks lost 3 guys and the Knicks
yeah,
lost 4.
they went 7 with that Knicks team that didn't have anyone and lost Jalen Brunson at the end, who was basically the whole team.
Yeah.
And then they played Boston, and they took Boston every single game. They took them to the wire.
Right.
Indiana, what did I see today? Indiana had a 90% chance to win games 1, 3,
And
and
3.
4
And
in the
4?
in the
Oh
fourth quarter.
no.
In the fourth quarter, yeah, I just saw this before we came on
And
the air.
game 4. Jeez.
One, I mean, they only lost game 4 by 3 points.
Yeah.
So,
Like somehow that game was sneaky close, and I have
yeah,
no explanation for how.
every game was sneaky close
Yeah.
until I'm actually clicking it right now. My computer is
I
giving
think
me.
Indiana's going to land someone. Like, I don't think there's much they really want to add to that team, but I think someone, possibly like a Paul George,
They
would be pretty
can't.
interesting.
So
They can't.
that's the problem. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was having this conversation with someone earlier today.
What's the reasoning behind Paul George? I forgot.
So Paul George is a free agent. That's fine. But
Yeah.
Indiana has Pascal Siakam, who they got on
Right.
a rental. He's a 1 year. His deal is up, and
Oh.
he's looking for a max contract. So
Oh, you can't do both.
you can't do both because you got to pay Halliburton at some point.
Oh, weird. Well, okay. All right. So I don't know. I don't know like these lesser name players, like the ones that are the All-Star squad on the Dallas Mavericks right now, but something like that.
I mean,
I
you
don't
know
know
what?
who these people are.
I can probably find their. I'm just looking at their games right now, but so game 1 obviously went in overtime. Boston like smashed them in overtime.
Yep.
Game 3 they lost by 3, and game 4 they lost by 3. So
Jeez.
like, I mean, and this
They could
might
be up
go right.
3-1
This yeah they could, and this might
playing
go right
tomorrow.
back. This might go right back into my hand of like this being the worst playoffs ever.
I,
Indiana,
I I I really like. I'm telling you, man. From the betting side, from analytics, from what I do with math, I'm telling you, Boston is going to bring a different look than Minnesota. That like, I would not be one to just like slam dunk money on Dallas to win the
oh,
NBA
me neither.
Finals.
Me
I
neither.
I, I
But
think this could be really tight. I think this could be a
it,
a good 6 games. In
it
all
could be.
honesty,
It could be because both teams are bad. They're not great teams.
but they
Like
do
they're
things
not
different ways, though.
okay.
Too.
They're not bad in a sense of like they're the worst team in the NBA or anything like that. But these are not championship teams. Like when you think
I
of
got to
champion,
disagree with that, man. I
when,
think Boston and Dallas both have
wait, let
really
me
good
let me
looks.
finish. Let me
Yeah,
let me finish. When you think of championship teams, you think of the most dominant team in the NBA that is just
right.
running through. Like we
Oh
talk
yeah.
about, like even going all the way back to like LeBron's Miami Heat
Yep.
or
The
the Golden
Spurs.
State Warriors or LeBron on the Cavs
Yep.
or like even that
The
Bucks team that
OKC
won the
Thunder's
championship.
team. Yeah.
The, like you talk about these teams that are so good, you're like, okay, yeah, they're gonna win the championship. Like I mean, Toronto's been basically the only team, but Kawhi was on such a tear
Yeah, he
during the
was.
playoffs that it was
Yep.
like, okay, this is destiny. Then he
Yeah.
hit the shot on Philly and blah blah blah. But
Yep.
like this Boston team and this Dallas team, they've had such easy roads to the championship that it's like, are they even great teams?
I do think
No.
Dallas definitely is.
Like
There's
it
something before like that All-Star break you pointed out, like Dallas had this different look. Dallas had like the best record post All-Star break. I know
yep,
that they lost like
they
what,
did.
8 games, if that, after the All-Star
Something
break.
like that. Yep.
Yeah. So like they're playing really darn good basketball. And to me, that's why I had to go back to the casino. And after I only bet Denver and OKC, I was like, I'm kind of forgetting a team on either side. And on the East, I mean, yeah, they lost everyone, but I'm glad I bet the Knicks. And then on the West, I'm really glad I bet the Mavericks because they've really shown that they've worked their way through the playoffs. I just I don't remember who the Mavericks played immediately out of the gates in round one, but they have wins against Oklahoma City and they're about to win against Minnesota. That's not, I mean, the Minnesota matchup is totally a mismatch, but the Oklahoma City match, I think they won that convincingly too. And I thought Oklahoma City's pretty good actually, and I just think they'll just keep getting better.
I I kind of agree with that. I mean, I Oklahoma City's good enough, but like in this NBA that we're talking about now is like I I don't really I don't see a dominant team anymore. I mean, look at the West. From 1 through 10, the difference was 11 games.
Sure.
In the East, one through or no, I'll even take one out of it because Boston was winning way more than everyone else. But from 2 through 8, there was a difference of 4 games. Like
Yeah. I don't
every
think the
team,
conferences are that different, to be honest. I don't
me
feel
neither.
that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Every team is almost on an even playing field to
Yeah.
the point where like, do I expect Boston to win a title next year? No. Do I expect Dallas to win a title next year? No. Do
Ooh.
I think Boston got to the playoff or the championship because Cleveland was hurt, Milwaukee was hurt, New York was
Yes.
hurt,
Yes.
Indy was hurt, Philly was hurt, Miami was hurt, Chicago, who was in the play-in, they were hurt.
Yep.
Atlanta, who was also in the play-in. That's 9 out of the 10 or 8 out of the 9 teams they would play, all were hurt.
In a way, too, Milwaukee when they won the championship, it was in a similar fashion. Each team was missing a player in each
Not
of
at,
the rounds except for
not
Phoenix.
not in the Eastern Conference Finals either. Milwaukee was missing the player because they beat Atlanta, who was full.
But wasn't James Harden banged up with a
He,
hamstring?
he wasn't on Atlanta. Atlanta's Trae Young.
No, James Harden with the Brooklyn Nets. I
Yeah,
believe he
yeah, yeah.
missed some
He missed
games.
a couple games, but I'm
Yeah,
saying in that regard, they still had Kyrie and still had uh Kevin Durant. So I mean,
and Trey Young also got hurt in the Hawks series, right?
yeah, for like a game, but Giannis
Yeah,
was out half the series.
bingo. Yep, yep.
And then obviously we thought Giannis broke his leg, so
Yeah, that was scary.
and he came back in the Philly or in the Phoenix series and ran away. But
Yep.
like, so no, I don't think Milwaukee had the same because Milwaukee lost their star player. Like,
Right, that's true.
and they weren't built around stars.
Right.
Middleton kind of went off for a game or two.
He did.
Boston literally has a starting five of all stars. I mean,
Right.
uh, and they're still struggling to beat
Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah. So like, uh, and then
I think I really hope Pascal Siakam stays. I'll be honest. Like, I know it took him a while to figure it out, but still watching them, like, he fits pretty well into that offense.
he does, because they don't have anyone else.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
uh,
Halliburton's like, to me, Halliburton, I really don't think should be the point guard. I don't know if he exactly is on that team, or is it
he
McCollum?
is. No, he
Okay.
McCollum comes off the bench.
Okay. I don't know. Like, I still think they do need a true point guard. I think Halliburton is more of a facilitator, or he benefits from it, kind of in a Luka Doncic kind of way. I
See,
think
I,
they get something like that on Indiana, then they become different. They take that
see,
next step.
I think the opposite. Tyrese Halliburton's a point guard. He's a facilitator first. He's not a scorer. They need a scoring. They need a shooting guard. Like
Ah, gotcha.
Benedict
Okay.
Mathurin and Andrew Nebhard are not gonna put up 20 points a game.
So who do you think would be available to bring in that could fit that role?
At that price, nobody
Well, I mean,
because
if
they
you so like so you have to unload Siakam, get a more lumbering kind of big guy, and then pay for a big high time shooting guard.
So the cap hold or the cap hit on for Doug McDermott, Obi Toppin, I mean, you would have to get rid of both of those guys.
Oh,
You would have to move. I'm looking at their cap right now.
yeah, yeah,
Miles Turner makes 14% of the cap. Aaron Nesmith, who we might not think about it, he makes 8% of the cap.
okay,
TJ McConnell makes another 7%. Like you would have to kind of shred their entire like bench to
yeah.
bring in someone that is going to blow up.
I mean, it seems
They
pretty well built for what it had going for it. It's like, wow, it's pretty remarkable what they did.
I think they just got lucky because
Yeah, they
teams were
did.
hurt.
They did. They absolutely did. But
Uh,
man, did they ball out?
because they wouldn't have beat Milwaukee. I mean,
No, not
they
with Giannis and Damian Lillard.
even with just Giannis, to be honest,
Right, just
like
Giannis would be enough to carry it. That's true.
I mean, it went 6 games. It went 7 with the Knicks, and
Yeah,
they didn't have
they
OG.
ran out
They
of
didn't have
players.
OG Anunoby. Julius Randle was out.
It was just
Uh,
DiVincenzo out there.
like
That
Josh
was it.
Hart and DiVincenzo were kind of running the show.
Yes,
Um,
and Hart was banged up too.
yeah, yeah, right. Like he had an abdominal thing that literally took him out the game in like 4 minutes.
I
Uh,
think that was it's like what was that, either abdominal strain or was that groin?
I thought it was they said abdominal,
Oh,
so I
okay.
just went with whatever they were
Well,
saying.
groin is over there too. And when
Yeah.
I think that, I always think JJ Watt. Like, ugh, like you're
Oh.
probably playing through something of that kind of type. And either way, it's
Um,
painful.
and then Pascal Siakam has a cap hit percentage of 35%,
Ugh.
and Tyrese Halliburton's at an estimate 30% for next year.
Yeah,
So
I
like,
can't I can't go I cannot go Siakam over Halliburton. Halliburton is the soul of the team now.
yeah,
Like, yeah, he really is. Like Siakam, he did good stuff, but he'd have to take but the thing is, like, I do think it's attractive. Like I think that is an attractive team to play for. Rick Carlisle is a great head coach. But the thing is too, so are the Knicks. Like there's a lot of interest. Like I think the East, if I'm a free agent and I can get a bang for the buck and get into some part of the rotation of a game against with the Knicks, Celtics, or Pacers, or even the Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe there's a way in with the Milwaukee Bucks as well. I mean, man, I think a lot of free agents out there, like some higher end next tier guys, I think they're looking at the East over the West, man. I really do. I think there's a ton of potential in the Eastern Conference next season for sure.
so that's the thing, and I've heard this from a lot of the in the know type people
Yeah.
that players may want to go to the East because they think it's easier to play.
I'm not saying. I am not saying
Um,
it's easier to play. I just feel I feel there's opportunity and success in the East. Like that doesn't mean that it's easier to play. It just
oh,
means like, wow, you have the right ingredients to make something special.
I, I
That's what I'm going with.
I was gonna say it is easier to play, to be honest.
In a
Like
way, like the with what we've been talking about tonight, it almost feels like the West might be feeling that.
I
Like there
and
might be an easier path in the West, but I just don't think there's the openings that the teams have in the East. I think the lineups out West are fairly set and fairly difficult to get into now.
see, and that's my thing is like if you look at just the standings and stuff like that, like both sides have their flaws, I guess, for
Yeah,
lack of a better like so yeah, like New York, right? New York's gonna be pretty good next year.
they are.
If they move or I mean, I won't even disrespect them that much, but Julius Randle at this point is expendable
Yeah,
and he's
totally.
on a big contract. But he
Totally.
also was a 20 and 10 guy. So can you insert him in there with Jalen Brunson, who has his new confidence of being the guy?
Right.
Like, does that work? They were the number 2 seed. I mean, well, they were a 3 seed basically until the last day, and then Milwaukee
Yeah.
didn't play for some reason.
Yeah.
Still puzzled by that.
Yeah.
Philly, right? Philly's got a max contract spot open. Once you move on from Tobias Harris, they're talking about bringing in Paul George. Well, their whole season rests on Embiid's shoulders. So look at this year. I
I
mean,
don't think Philly's good.
they went from. I mean, I'll give Embiid his due, and I'm not a big Embiid fan, but
Neither am I. I'm really not.
they went from out of the playoffs. The guy comes back, and they got at least to the 7 seed,
That's
which
true.
the 5, 6, and 7 all had the same record. So
yeah, I think I hope. I mean, I know he's going to be in some role on the Olympic team, but this is a guy that really shouldn't be playing in the Olympics and should just heal. Like, if you have Joel Embiid and he's fully healthy, like, dude, he is up there with like Nikola Jokic kind of talent. He is special, but I think his knees are just really beat up.
Yeah. So now this is where I kind of get like so far in the weeds of like
what about Donovan Mitchell? He's a weird tweener.
So that's actually the exact team that I'm looking at right now. So I'm glad you said that. So if you look at next year's cap, they basically have 6 guys that are over $10 million. You have Evan Mobley, who's I believe still on his rookie deal. He's at 11.
Was he the guy that just drafted from Alabama last season, or am I thinking of a different guy?
Man, I'm really bad at drafts.
There was that guy from Alabama that had like the gun issue. I know he got drafted. I forgot exactly by which team. I think it was maybe the Wizards. I know Alabama had some really good guys coming into the league over the last 2 seasons.
So Evan Mobley's from USC.
Never mind. I'm mixing him up with another guy.
He was the number 3 overall pick
Gotcha.
3 years ago.
Gotcha.
But Max Strus, which I didn't even know this, he's making 11% of the cap, which is nuts.
Well, because he was so implemental in that playoffs with Miami. That's why they jacked that price up, even though in our eyes we wouldn't pay that. I know that.
He's not even in the starting lineup.
Exactly. That's why it doesn't really make sense.
Karis LeVert's making 12% of the cap. Ugh. By the way, they play the same position. Yeah. I don't understand. And then Jared Allen's making 15% of the cap, which is actually a really good number for him. He's only making $20 million, which is great. Vastly underpaid, to be honest.
Right.
He's Rudy Gobert, but he's better.
Nice.
And then
I actually think I saw him on Fox today. He's really cool.
Oh, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland have the same cap hit. They're at about 25% of the cap. So at this point, Cleveland moving on from Donovan Mitchell, you could kind of send him almost anywhere. I mean, if I just bring up the trade machine, you could match Donovan Mitchell with almost any team that we talked about, which sounds insane, but he's only at $33 million.
Yeah, I know the Knicks really wanted him. I've heard Stephen A. Smith talk about that and kind of how his heart is almost torn that he went to the Cavaliers instead of the Knicks.
Because they should have drafted him. That's what Stephen A. is really big on. Yeah,
gotcha.
They ended up picking, I believe, Obi Toppin, who's not on the team anymore.
Wait, Obi Toppin was in the league after Donovan Mitchell.
Are you sure?
Donovan Mitchell is way older than 3 years old. I saw him before COVID when he was on the Jazz.
You are correct. Let me check that draft class. That's 2017. But if you're looking at his contract just in general, it's not a big contract to move. Nick's got oh man. Oh, that's even worse. The Knicks pick Frank Inakila. If
I don't know who that is.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a French point guard.
Oh, okay.
That a lot like he was pretty athletic and people thought he was going to be a dude, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Knicks picked him, and believe it or not, the Denver Nuggets could have had Donovan Mitchell. Uh, they traded that pick to the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, and I guess like Stephen A. has always felt some type of way about that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, uh, 13 teams passed on Donovan Mitchell, so it's not like we thought
It's
he
not
was
the
going to be
worst
that
thing,
dude. Yeah,
but he's still pretty good. To be
he
mid
is.
first round is pretty impressive.
And to be honest, a lot of this draft was like just looking at the top end of it is not bad. I mean, you had Markel Fultz, Lonzo Ball, Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, Jonathan Isaac, who's a great defender in Orlando,
Yeah.
Lauri Markkanen, Dennis Smith Jr., Malik Monk. Like, there's some Bam Adebayo was in there. Like,
Yeah.
there's some pretty solid dudes in here.
I'll put a wrench in this where there's a team in the West that basically up until this season was pretty dominant, was like a top four powerhouse, I'd say, in the West, and now is 100% non-existent. But I feel like next year it should change, and I would expect to see this team come back, but they got to have the players to do it. What about the ability for free agents to be attracted to Memphis? What about that team?
So, okay, Memphis is one of those teams that I've never even like pictured in my brain just because like I I don't really know how I feel about Memphis after the whole Ja Morant and
Right.
but didn't they just pay Desmond Bain if I'm not mistaken? Yeah,
Yeah, I
Desmond
think you're
Bain
right.
is so
I think you
oh no.
get I think that would be a very interesting place for Donovan
I
Mitchell
I don't know how though. So remember,
because they're both point guards.
no, not even that. Well, Donovan Mitchell's a two guard, but he's just really short. Which is why he doesn't really fit in New York either, because he
Right.
and Jalen Brunson are kind of the same player.
They are.
Um,
But
but
I think that could
do
I could see a Dallas Mavericks style of building that team working in Memphis in a
do
way.
you remember the big pickup for Memphis last year?
Big pickup for Memphis.
It was a trade.
It was a trade. Gosh, when I
Yeah.
think of trades in Memphis, the only thing I can think of is Grayson Allen.
See, it sounds insane because most of their players, like Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, Brandon Clark,
That big guy
Steven
I
Adams,
like. Who's that
all
big
those
guy I like? The
uh
guy who defends Giannis like lights
oh,
out.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Jaron Jackson. Yeah,
So like none of those guys played last year because suspension, injured, broken.
exactly.
The big pickup was Marcus Smart.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Exactly. He was
Yeah,
hurt, so
he
nobody
was hurt.
remembers that. So
Right. There's something there.
between Ja, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, Marcus Smart, and Luke Kennard of all people, they all make more than 10% of the cap, and
Oh
they eat a lot of cap space.
gosh, man, if they can fit one guy in there, I think that team is back.
Yeah, but where how?
Right.
Like
Yeah. I know when it comes to money, it gets weird, but man, I think somehow, some way that team's got to think like, man, we just need that one guy to be like that Luca Kyrie companionship to
so
Ja Morant, and we got it. We got
now
something. They have athleticism. They have culture.
now if you remember, I was pretty big on someone they drafted and he started getting some playing time. You remember I made a video of two guys that I didn't think were gonna get drafted at all, and
Okay.
it was Imani Bates for
Okay.
Cleveland
Yes.
and Gigi Jackson for Memphis.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
and Gigi Jackson was balling by the end of the season because again, there was
Interesting.
no one there.
There you
So
go.
they also have Vincent Williams Jr., who was putting up about 20 a game, again, because no one was there.
Right.
This team is pretty stacked. I mean, you have
Yeah,
Derek
they
Rose
also
coming
beat the
off the
Bucks
bench.
right before the All-Star game.
They did. They have Derek
They
Derek
fully
Rose
loaded
coming off
the
the
Milwaukee
bench.
Bucks.
Salty Aldama is a pretty solid backup center. You got Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson with Marcus Smart and Ja Morant. Like,
That
they're
team's coming.
pretty set.
Yeah, that would be that's a sneaky team that can fight tooth and nail with every team in the West.
And now
And they have a
that's
good
the
head
interesting
coach.
part.
They really do.
Who do you take out of the playoffs? Because
So I got
some teams.
just thinking who's been in there. I think the Lakers are on the verge of blowing this up. So I really am kind of thinking the Lakers. But I'm just kind of rambling off the teams. We got OKC. I like them a lot. Denver, I think, would make it based on rolling it back plus elevation. I would think I like kind of how we talk about this. I would have to it has to be proven to me that the Timberwolves are a good team. They have to really shake up that lineup now, and that's going to happen.
And now, if Paul George leaves the Clippers, does James Harden leave too?
I don't think the Clippers are going to be that good. Maybe James Harden is one of those weird guys who's like, I made a ton of money. I'll sign for like dirt cheap and do whatever I can to win it, because I think he wanted that with the Clippers.
Remember last year's everybody's, darling, Sacramento Kings
They're there too. They're a scary team. Yeah, that's a scary team, man. Like, there's a lot of options.
Then New Orleans they're talking
that team's out.
BI.
No way. That team is gone. That's the team that I would definitely say is gone. Phoenix was in this. I like the whole Frank Vogel thing in Phoenix to me was weird. Just how they've changed regimes, getting rid of DeAndre Ayton. I just do not like what the heck Phoenix ownership is doing these days. So I'd take Phoenix out as well.
So
I think we could have maybe almost at least a couple new teams in the West.
So it's funny because we go back to how we started this whole conversation. I know we're getting to an hour here,
but it's good.
It goes back to my whole argument in the beginning.
It's what our show's about. It's about building teams for this episode. We want to see the debate in how we build these.
Was this playoffs actually good? Because we just named like 4 or 5 teams in the West where we're like, yeah, they're out of there. Get them out of the playoffs. Like,
exactly. But I think some of these matchups have been interesting. I do think the Mavericks OKC has been interesting, and the Minnesota Denver has been interesting. But then that's only half.
Yeah.
Like, that's really only half of the West. We're missing like another half of the West, which is why you and I are on the same page. We don't think the West is all that greater than the East. And next year, it's really going to change.
And my exciting part and probably last bit of info on this is like, yeah, you have your big dominoes like Pascal Siakam. Does he resign with Indy? Well, then Indy doesn't.
No.
They can't do anything else. They're strapped.
No, they're not going to do that.
Milwaukee, right? I like looking at Milwaukee's roster next year. It's basically the exact same roster except Malik Beasley.
The NBA draft has not occurred yet, though, too, right?
It is not. But
that's where it gets interesting.
The draft is kind of, as the young people say it, the draft's kind of buns.
Right. I get it. I get that the draft is not that great, but that is going to play a big part into how we start to see these dominoes fall and how these teams rise, except for a team like Memphis, which is going to be very sneaky good next season.
So then a team like Milwaukee, though, if they draft someone, we've seen it with AJ Green, Marshawn Beauchamp, Chris Livingston, Andrew Jack, they're not going to play.
Exactly. That's the problem with Milwaukee, which I don't have the faith in them because this age is getting older. The athleticism is lacking. That's where I have big concerns with the Bucks.
And that's why I know I might be in the minority, but I think you move Damian Lillard. Or you move
exactly.
Like I love the idea of moving Chris Middleton. He makes $31 million, 22% of the cap. Yeah. But like, who wants it?
No one does. And like that's not a shot at him. That's just the fact of how you buy and trade stocks in a way. And
Yeah,
Damian Lillard is more of a like, oh yeah, anyone wants to buy him. Although
but
I'll tell you, 365 days out of the week, 7 days a week, or 365 days out of the year, 7 days a week, I want Drew Holiday, who we moved on from in a way for him. And that was a complete mistake. Complete mistake.
wait a minute. I mean, we were still the best team.
I saw him 2 nights ago against the Pacers end a game,
We
just like
were
he did against Phoenix to win an NBA title.
true.
Guys that end games, that's just different.
Dame
That puts you in another league when you do it on defense.
Dame ends games on offense though.
He
So
does.
to
He
me,
does.
they're a wash. Like the big impact and the big thing to watch with the Bucks. There's $10 million for Pat Connaughton. There's $12 million for Bobby Portis. And this is the one deal that I hate so much, and it hurts because he's a big part of Milwaukee. But they gave Brooke Lopez that $23 million deal, and he makes 16% of the cap, but he's 36. He's the oldest player on the team.
Yeah, he
And
is.
I know when we gave him that deal, it was kind of like, hey, we just won a championship. Let's
But he
give
shows
everyone
it.
money.
Your defensive metric there showed it.
Yeah. And
That's the value.
but he's almost unplayable in the playoffs. And that came to
Oh,
fruition with like Indiana. They were so fast and so
right.
so much speed on offense and fast breaks that Brooke Lopez was non-existent.
Okay.
And so when you look at teams like that, like what does a Milwaukee do? Like we said, Memphis doesn't have cash. Another sneaky team would be Chicago. Zach LaVine can get moved. They don't have DeMar DeRozan anymore. He's a free
Oh,
agent.
Zach LaVine would be a neat pickup for some of these teams, like maybe a New York.
Yeah, that's where I think he should go. I think DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine should go to New York.
Ooh, and DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, they're both really good.
But DeMar
LaVine's
DeRozan's a
got a little
free
more
agent.
injury stuff, though.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan's a free agent. But LaVine hasn't really played all year, so he might be
Yeah,
fresh.
exactly. Yeah. The thing is, too, like, would you bring in LaVine, pay him, and also try to save tread on the tires? Possibly not start him.
Right. Maybe.
I mean, think of
But
it as guys coming out basically, and obviously it's ironic because it's a New York sports team, but play it almost like in a Brees Hall kind of style.
but $43 million is kind of hard to bring off the bench.
Oh my. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe the Boston Celtics. Like it takes smart ownership like what the Celtics do to pull something off like that.
So now,
It's going to take some crazy mathematics and money management to pull this off. Whatever team can pull this off, you're going to really put yourself in a nice position, I think.
so the team that is going to be the sneakiest. I know we're on a whole different tangent here, but my big team to be sneaky and watch is going to be the Brooklyn Nets.
Interesting. Interesting.
The only big contract that they have left is Ben Simmons. And if they
Oh,
can somehow sneak out of that and call it like, an injury settlement or something,
sure.
the NBA has all types of weird nonsense they can do.
Sure.
Everyone else makes 20 million or less.
Okay.
And they have
Interesting.
their star with Mikal Bridges.
Right.
Cam Thomas is only making 4 million. He was really good.
Sure.
Dorian Finney-Smith's over there. He's a really good trade piece at 15. Like they have some space to do some
Okay.
stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, that's pretty interesting. Another team I got out east, who obviously has one of the highest draft picks in the draft, has a superstar, but has had good pieces. They've kind of moved around a little bit. They fell out of the playoffs, but I think they could do something. I really like the French guy that's going to be the number one pick. What about the Atlanta Hawks?
So what's funny? I have heard that French guy going to San Antonio to match up with Victor Wembanyama
How would the Spurs pull that off?
because I think he's not. I don't think he's the number one like prospect. It's
Who is?
The kid out of Australia. Oh man, now my brain.
Oh, oh,
What's
okay.
his name?
Yeah, now this is like way above my head at this point. Yeah, like I've seen the French guy, and he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he hasn't been like. I don't think he's been mocked like number one in a long time.
Where so the Spurs are what, 3?
Um, are they three or are they two?
Oh, if they're 2, they're gonna pull it off then. That'd be
Yeah,
insane.
Alex Czar. Uh,
Okay.
that's the kid. Really, really long athlete. Uh, he's 7'1", he's 18, he can shoot. Like he's pretty solid.
All right.
You're talking about the 6'6" Nikola Topic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that French guy is solid.
I really think he could be somebody like special,
Yeah.
like Lucas special.
Yeah.
I don't
I would
throw that
not,
around very
if
much.
someone moves off that French guy, I'm telling you they're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, I agree. Because
Like,
you
oof.
don't get 6'6" point guards very often.
I was hearing at least a few years ago, that there was talks that he might be better than Victor Wembanyama, is what they were
Whoa.
talking about with that French team. Yeah, like
Well, yeah,
sneaky
because
good.
a lot of a lot of like teams didn't really think Victor Wembanyama was going to be good for some. I was reading
Right.
like, did you see the thing where he found a troll from 3.5 years ago that said he was going to be a bum, and he like
Oh,
found him on Twitter and just he's just like, yeah, I'm pretty good. Like, come
yeah.
on.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, I just think I think there's something really special about these newer guys coming from France. And I saw the game that was on ESPN a few summers ago with LeBron's Bronny team against Wembanyama and this current French guy, and the French were just better. They were just way better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But Alex Czar is the guy that you're going to be looking for.
Yeah, that should be the number
Um,
1 overall draft pick. Like, it
yeah,
really should be.
I don't know. I don't know what'll happen, but
Yeah.
it'll be the top couple of picks could be fun.
Yeah, I would say, like, if I'm the Atlanta Hawks, you have to bring in Trey Young, not like another Atlanta team did with Kirk Cousins. You have to bring them in on the same page to get this to work. I mean, we'll be talking about it further into the summer about how messed up the Atlanta Falcons are with how they had a superstar and they had some really nice pieces and ability to do it. And they're basically, in my eyes, the opposite of the Green Bay Packers. But that's for a later time in summer.
Yeah, I that'll be a fun one.
Yeah,
Oh, you know
absolutely.
what? Are you talking about Reichner, the 6'9" wing out of France? Because there's a couple French people up at the top. Uh,
Oh,
Topic is just my favorite, but now
okay.
I'm seeing Topic is falling to 9. So
Yeah, the other guy I know coming from France is not that much shorter than Victor Wembanyama.
yeah, he's 6'9",
And
and
Wemby is 7'2".
yeah, 7'2", 7'1", somewhere in there.
Right. Okay.
They have him mocked at number 2. So,
Yeah, the French guy should be 1.
but Alex Czar, like that 18-year-old kid at 7'1" he is a freak of nature.
Yeah, and his
Uh,
last name is Czar, so that's going to carry weight.
they
That's
really
going to be.
like him next to Trey Young. So, um,
Yeah, Trey's got to be in on this, man. He's got to be all in on who they feel this number 1 is going to be. If at the end of the day Trey doesn't agree with it, it's not going to work.
yeah, I it could happen. I don't know. I'm all over the place right now with the mock drafts and uh yeah, the way I'm seeing some things, but yeah, even in this mock draft, I'm looking at Yahoo Sports. They have Nikola Topic going to the Spurs at 4.
Okay.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it's looking pretty interesting with how that works. So yeah, I think that's about everything we got for conference finals and talking about what makes teams great and how to build some of these powerhouse teams and teams that should be in the playoffs who are clearly not in the playoffs that we miss because of injury and way too much injury to put on top of that. So, um, yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Like, I don't know, maybe one other thing I want to get at that you probably know a little more than I do when it comes to these playoffs. Do you think that maybe these playoffs going longer or more intense? To me, I feel like these games have been like the way that they've played these games scheduling wise has been pretty intense compared to years in the past. I felt like there in the years past we'd have like game, day off, game, travel day, day off, then game in the playoffs. Feels like a lot of these games nowadays have just been like game travel, game travel, game travel. I don't know if you're seeing that. That's what I'm seeing, and we know 100% that's going on in the conference finals. And I'm
Yeah.
not totally big on that. I think the intensity of these games might be what's leading to injury. I mean, look at the Pacers. They're probably playing every other day. Something I saw they even played what? They played 3 games in 3 different cities in 5 days in the
Yeah.
playoffs. That's ridiculous.
But at this rate, that's kind of the players' fault. The NBA doesn't want this to drag. I mean, we're already getting into June, and then
Right.
they'll be playing again. What, like
The Olympics.
September, October? We'll get some preseason games. Like,
Yeah, like
and
it's a weird schedule the way they've built this now.
so during the regular season, they get all these off days and stretched out times and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, guys sit for rest days. As long as they're above that 65 games, right?
Yeah.
So the NBA they kind of have to make the playoffs shorter because
Ugh.
they don't have any time. That
Yeah,
like
I see. Yeah, I
in
mean
a
I
couple
know they're
weeks we'll
right.
have the draft, and
Yep.
then it's training camp in like a month or two, and
Yep.
here we go again.
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely see that that's going on. I just felt like in the last few years, especially when COVID was going on, that those games were a little more better spaced out and would allow them for a little bit better rest, and we would get better matchups in the playoffs. Where like you see now, like we have way more intensity, shorter rest, and teams dropping like flies.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same rate, that's kind of what that was the excuse they used for Minnesota is they were tired and
Oh no,
this
they
and
should be
that.
no. That team has no excuse in my eyes. That
Yep.
team, to me, is the second most athletic behind Oklahoma City in the West. Like
Makes
Indiana is
sense.
a different form of athleticism, I get, but Minnesota has no excuse. I mean, they've had players just not playing well. It looks like tonight, it's a little bit of a change of pace from that, but to me, like they really have no excuse. They went into Denver and took it to them pretty handedly, and then have had plenty of time to recoup and get ready for the Dallas Mavericks, which I expected to be a war, but not at this point.
Yeah, but
So it is what it is.
that is no debate.
That's no debate, man. So I think that's a heck of a show we got for tonight. We did a lot of stuff. I think next week we'll probably have about ready for the NBA Finals. Talk a little bit more WNBA action. I've seen some games here and there that have actually been pretty good. So definitely love talking about that. But I think we got it for our show tonight.
Oh yeah, man. I'm excited about. I'm more excited about the WNBA than I
Yes,
am the NBA playoffs. It's
I
kind of
agree.
weird.
Yeah, like there's definitely been some good stuff. A little sneak peek on our W talk. I mean, yeah, I like the Aces because I'm a diehard Vegas Raider and owned by the same owner. But from a little bit of what I've seen so far, I think the best team in the W is Phoenix.
Phoenix?
Phoenix, yes, and they're
I thought you were on the Connecticut Sun.
They're a sneaky good team too, but Phoenix and even winning minus Brittany Griner, that's scary.
Oh, I know. Deanna Taurasi, man.
I mean, they should be 2-0 against Vegas. They are 1-1, but they should be 2-0 without Brittany Griner against Vegas. That's
All
impressive.
right. I
That's
mean,
no debate.
I'm down. I'm down.
So good stuff. So we'll talk about this next year. We'll bring this back. I'm Steve Metrics. That's your boy.
DJ Triggs.
And together, that's no debate.